I'm glad you brought this up because I want to ask you a sensitive question. How many boyfriends did you have before you got married?
Wait. Finish his story. Finish his story first, but I'll answer your question later.
Will you?
Of course, you just remind me.
Hello everyone. Hey, thanks for coming by today. Appreciate you guys coming by for tea. Today we're going to talk about purity and dating. Okay, let's start from the very basics. Okay, how would you define purity in a modern day context? What is purity?
The first thing I think would come on the top of our heads is no sex before marriage.
Okay,
Yeah.
is it just about sex?
I guess not just like sex, like sharing the intimacy with somebody else. I think it also
So can hold hands, can hold. Okay,
yes.
can kiss.
Do some people say yes? Yeah.
So it's not clear. Are you clear?
Then again, I think that these boundaries, right, that we're talking about, has to be set by somebody that I think has gone through it already. So, for example,
Yeah.
like seeking your mentor or somebody or your spiritual community to identify actually what's wrong and what do you think is not wrong or
Your
what's right.
spiritual community or your mentor. Okay, the reason why I asked that is because maybe up to 100 years ago, right, if a lady shows you her ankle, you have to marry her, right? Maybe 80 years ago, if she shows you your shoulder, wow, she's been defiled, right? So where does it end and where does purity begin and where does it end? When do you become impure? Or does it even matter? Do people even talk of purity nowadays? Is that confined to the people in the church and the old people?
But before we talk about what is the definition of purity, don't we need to think about why is it even important? Why is it even a concept?
Okay.
Right? Because if it's not important, if it doesn't serve any purpose, then why are we even observing it?
Boundaries that are set or purity, right? In defining what is purity, I guess understanding what is purity
Okay.
and why it is necessary helps you to even define it.
Okay, so why do we start with that? So what is purity?
I see purity as a subset of holiness.
Okay.
And my understanding of holiness is not that it's an arbitrary set of rules that someone said, God said, this is what you should do and this is what you should not do just because I like it. And so you just suck it up, right? It's not. I think the do's and the don'ts are there sort of like an explanation of the rules of the game of life. And if you have choice, right? If you do this, then good things come out of it. If you do the don'ts, then there are consequences and these are bad consequences. And why God delineates all these things for us is because He wants us to have life and have life everlasting. And so that's the way that I see holiness. It's not as an arbitrary set of rules, but as a way towards thriving. And so I think if you think of it in that terms, then it's easier to delineate what purity is.
Okay.
Because you want to do the things that leads to life and not do the things that lead to chaos and destruction and death.
So following up from what you're saying is that purity is applicable to different facets of life. Dating is one of them. So let's narrow it down further. What does purity in dating or in a courtship, what does it look like and what should it be?
So for me, then I go back to the first principles, like why be pure in a dating relationship? For me, I think most of it, the bulk of it is to avoid unnecessary pain and regrets. Yeah. So you don't want to be in a situation where you have done something with somebody in a dating relationship, and then after that, if you break up, you look back on it and you say, I should not have done that because now I've given to this person something that I should have reserved for the person I'm going to marry and live the rest of my life with.
Okay, but that's a construct of the Methodists or of Christians, right? What about somebody you meet at the bus stop who doesn't share the same
Yeah.
as that's the same construct.
Mm.
And they say, okay, it's okay. You know, I love him. Love is love, right? So why does it matter how I share my love with this person?
Well, I think that I think that uh physical intimacy, emotional intimacy also, it actually like it takes a lot out of you. So like when you enter into emotional intimacy with someone and physical intimacy, like a part of you is binded to that person. And if you break up with that person, or if like you choose to go your separate ways, that part that is binded still remains binded. There's no way to break it.
Yeah, so a lot of popular culture, everybody says, "Oh, at least I've got memories to live by. I have made beautiful memories with this person. I can go and love somebody else." Now, how do you reconcile that?
I mean, that sounds nice when you say that I have beautiful memories, but when it's, let's say you've broken up with this person, these memories then become hurtful. And then if you've moved on to another relationship, these memories become flashbacks.
Becomes baggage
Yeah.
that you bring.
Mm.
You might like project that hurt onto that somebody else.
Okay.
Yeah, forming a new relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I want to pick up on what Luke said also about
Okay.
the bonds, right?
Yeah.
I think not enough people know that, especially if we talk about sex, or not even going all the way, even sexual acts leading to going all the way, it creates this chemical that actually is what we call the binding chemical that binds people together. And so that's an amazing thing,
Is
right?
that scientific?
It's scientific.
Oh
Okay.
wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so that's amazing, right? Because that is the design that God had for sex, which is to really bind two people together. And every time that you have sex with somebody and then you either, then go on to have sex with somebody else or you break up, someone once described it like sticky scotch tape. You stick it and then you rip it off, you stick it and rip off. Each time you then go on to do that same act of bonding with somebody else, it gets weaker and weaker. And the reality is that when you are having sex with your husband, your wife, or some people don't believe in marriage, right? It could be your long-term partner. You will be thinking about all these other people that you had sex with. And someone described it as almost like having these other people in bed with you and your partner. Because you can't help it. The memories come back.
There are some people who actually are seemingly happy in a fully committed relationship, although they're not legally married. And what would you say to them?
I don't think we can hold the same standards that we personally believe in
Right.
onto someone else
Yeah.
who doesn't follow.
Who doesn't follow, right?
Yeah.
But I think that even in perhaps not putting our standards on others, right?
Yeah.
I think we do have a duty to probably just like, hey, actually, where do you see this going? Or like, let me have to have a relationship with the person to ask.
Okay.
And then you're like, hey, actually, like, what's going on? Like, where is this heading to? Like, are these things that you want to hold on to? Because I think there was one concept I heard with this, which is like, you need to test drive the car before you can buy it. So like then it becomes like you test drive means you cohabit lah.
Yeah.
You know? And then you guys are together and then you test drive first. And then if can, right, then okay lah, buy lah, marry.
Right.
If cannot, right, then easy to
I think that's just okay. I think that's men's excuse to
Yeah.
get under the cover, right? Why you don't test drive for cooking?
After isn't that part of the deal? Test drive everything, right?
How many people test drive cooking?
I don't see it in a woman and man perspective. I see it was a people perspective.
Okay.
Depending on your own personality, right? If you're more emotionally inclined, more emotionally attuned, then I guess like the intimacy part will hit more. That's not to say that people who are logical won't feel that, but maybe they would say that, hey, I've already moved past this phase, and that's like period, full stop, and then they would just move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree with that actually, because I do have friends who are like me. I'm one of them who's a bit more emotional. So then even like small things, right, like holding hands or like leaning on a shoulder, these are very small things, but these things matter a lot compared to other people that I know who are like, oh that's last time lah. Now next one already. Nothing lah, finish already, over already, next one, then next one. Yeah, I agree with that.
The Christian's view of this, right? It's, do we consider our view outdated? Is this still relevant, you think?
Even couples who cohabited before getting married, they are twice as likely to get divorced as couples who didn't.
Right.
And so the whole idea that test driving sexually before marriage actually helps is not true. Yeah, because having sex before marriage, it breeds a certain sort of mentality that as a man, you are not expected to have to be a provider, to protect, to have, honor,
Mm.
and to honor the other person.
Mm.
Like all these things are missing from the relationship. If you build it on, I am happy, you give me pleasure,
Yeah.
on the sex,
Yeah.
number one, that's the wrong basis already.
Right.
Number two, what sex does also is it clouds your judgment. It creates a sense of intimacy and love. It makes you feel like you know the other person already.
Yeah.
And so your relationship is then built on the idea that you think you know the other person, but actually years down the road, then you realize, oh my goodness, who did I marry? And actually it was the sex that made you want to marry this person.
And then over there, you like sort certain things out, right? You talk about certain things. So I guess parents have a responsibility in loving each other in the way that they want their children to love their partner. Yeah, because I'm also a bit like, parents have to do more. I come from that point of view. As much as the church can give a lot of things, parents still, the children see the parents at their most vulnerable state at home.
Okay. So Luke is going to be a father soon, right?
Oh wow,
Right.
congrats.
Yay. Now,
Yay.
do you think you would be able to sit down with your child
Hmm.
eventually, or have you even discussed this with your wife about educating them about dating and intimacy and stuff like that?
Yeah, so when I talk to my wife about it, she tells me like you need to take her on dates and things like that, like to show her how a man should treat a lady.
Yeah, that's good.
So that is probably one of the things that I would do in the future.
Okay. Did your parents ever talk to you about it?
They have.
What did they say? Was there a list of
Nice.
don't do this, don't do that, don't do...
I think like yes and no.
Okay.
The message that they had to try to convey was we tried to steer it towards like we do not encourage you to to get physically intimate before marriage, for example.
Okay.
Yeah. But I guess it comes from like a perspective of how wanting to protect your child and knowing that your child also has like a spiritual dimension, spiritual life to them, and so you want them to like live their best life. Yeah.
I think because subconsciously, a lot of parents are worried about daughters because the cost of pregnancy is on the woman, not the man. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When I say
exactly,
women are
right?
more vulnerable.
Yeah.
And that's why cohabiting is terrible for women because they don't realize they are paying a price. And a lot of women go along with that because they think, or even things like premarital sex, because they think that's what the world is like. But if you think a little deeper, how does it impact you? Yeah, so coming back to that, I think a lot of parents worry more about the cost for their daughter, but they're like, I mean, it's terrible if my son does it, but he's gonna be okay. He doesn't have to carry the child for 9 months. His life is not over, Yeah.
Which I think is a sad truth, maybe. I think there are certain things that parents say to one another. Actually, I think the heavier message is in what they don't say.
Such
How they act. So, for example,
Yeah.
like for let's say in my family, right? Things like chores, things like that. Although we would assume gender roles, right? Women to do in the kitchen, blah blah blah, and all that. But actually, my household is very different because actually my dad was the one who was doing most of the stuff at home. So then I took on from there, like, okay, how do you use the bamboo pole, hang clothes, things like that.
You will be the most sought after son-in-law after this, right?
I'm just saying.
He's not gonna remain single for long.
Yeah. Yeah.
But is it like what the husbands don't say that we can raise better sons and fathers in the future?
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I've like heard like different stories from my female friends
Yeah.
where their parents are much more stricter, like towards them compared to like their other like counterparts, their sibling counterparts. Yeah, so like
Stricter to your
towards the
female
daughters,
friends,
like,
to your
yeah.
daughters.
Then
Okay.
the
Yeah.
sons.
So like, yeah, I guess it's true. But their reasoning isn't the most sound. They would just say like, oh, boys will be boys or men will be men, you know. And it's like, it feels as if like like if you're a parent saying that you're like, from a child's perspective, you're complicit in like perpetuating
Okay.
like this kind of like stereotypes or like expectations
Yeah.
placed on like gender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, then I want to ask Luke. Next time, your child grows up, right?
Yeah.
How will you then help your child to navigate dating?
For me, I think it is really about the bond between parent and child, right? So, like for me personally, I was quite close to my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Not during the teen years, but like later on. So when I entered into my 20s, that's when I started becoming closer to my parents. That's when they started showing a little bit more care about like relationships, who I'm dating, and giving caution as to like sexual purity and things like that. Yeah, but before that, I really think that it's because of the lack of bond that we didn't have those conversations. Yeah. So like my parents will both be working, I'll be in school, and I have trainings like morning, nights, and all that. So I don't really see them, don't really hang out with them. So our bonds were not very strong. Yeah. And I also used to be quite a wayward child. So like my parents kind of just let me go. Let me live my
Be
life.
yourself.
Yeah.
Find your footing.
Because only in the later years then they told me when I decided to really step into all that God has called me for. Yeah. And then they told me that during those years were one of the toughest times. Yeah. And then they were praying for me.
Pastor Joey, did your parents ever talk to you about this?
Yeah, but it was the don't do this.
We talk about commitment, situationships, and the lack of it, right? So let's say we are 100% committed. We've applied for our BTO. Okay? We definitely, right? Because BTO is coming in 3 years' time. Is it okay to be intimate?
Physically intimate as in.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then I would say no, because then what's the point of marriage?
It goes back to the question of why. Okay, no, I would still say no lah. Actually, applying
Is
for
that
BTO
realistic?
is
Is that okay? Apply for
applying
BTO.
for BTO is a very
Singaporean
Singaporean thing lah.
proposal.
Actually, you apply for BTO even before you propose.
yeah lor.
So it's very interesting, right? Because when I was researching for one of my sermons, I came across an article that says that Christians who are engaged are more likely to fall into sexual sin than before their engagement. Yeah, because they think engaged already ma, so
Yeah,
right,
exactly, right?
almost married, right?
Yeah.
But you're not married, what?
聘金已经送了.
Funny,
dowry already, yeah.
Fan yi,
dowry.
Oh, dowry, right.
Yeah.
Shit.
Yeah. So my view is that if you are already engaged to be married, why don't you wait until marriage? And I think that period of waiting, right, it trains you up in self-control. And that self-control is precious commodity because after you get married, that self-control will also come in handy. What if your wife is pregnant? Then how? If you are a Christian, then I would say the institution of marriage is there for a reason, is there to protect you. And God has designed sex to be within the context of marriage. It is for you to honor yourself for whether you're a man or a woman, is to honor yourself and to honor the other person. That you will not take something from the other person without giving the person the safety and security of marriage.
Okay, so both of you are not married, right? So I guess the question is, would you make a commitment to remain
Pure.
until that time?
Practically,
okay, but practically,
difficult, lah.
practically it's difficult, right? So
Yeah.
this is a follow-up question for Pastor Joey, right? So let's say you failed, you flopped. BTO coming in 3 months, but National Day, fireworks, boom, right? So is there a way back?
Yeah. So there will be consequences.
Yeah.
I think when we've made mistakes, we cannot, God does forgive the mistakes, but it doesn't mean that there's no more consequences.
Right.
Yeah. We can only pray.
Yeah.
and pray that God will minimize those things, that God will maybe release us from those things. Yeah. But I think that's something that we need to consider very carefully,
Yeah.
that there are consequences, and it's going to be difficult. So for someone who hasn't done it yet,
Yeah.
do you really want to go there and have to deal with all this baggage?
Right.
So if let's say BTO, right?
Yeah.
And then you're gonna lead to marriage, but then like you choose to cross that boundary, right? But in the end, it leads up to marriage. Then how do you go from there? Is it all good?
It's not all good. But I don't know how to answer why it's not all good.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean I just want to bring you guys to this, right? So in the March issue of the Methodist message, there's this thing about physical intimacy and Christian dating I find quite interesting. But what I found quite funny actually, I'm sure it's not meant to be funny. It says this, right? There seems to be an endless stream of rules surrounding dating for Christians, which is true. Okay. Since there are no guidelines in the Bible of dating, right? Many well-meaning church leaders try to help us prepare. Well-meaning, I put in the inverted commas because sometimes I feel that, the older people tend to apply unnecessary expectations and unrealistic standards on the younger people. That's why I kind of made fun about, must he be Methodist, right?
Yeah.
Because there are some people who advocate that because they always quote what it must be equally yoked. Do you think it's practical or no? There are more important things to address other than this,
I think that the cultures change, like culture changes,
right?
right? So the average age for marriage now tends to be
Older?
older,
Yeah.
right? We've got 30, 28, 32, 35, even older.
Yeah.
But then like my parents' time was like 23, 22, married.
Yeah.
And then what happens now, in today's time, today's culture in church, they're like, huh? You mean you're 31 and you're not married? When I was 22, I was already married.
Yeah. 3
You should,
kids.
yeah. Like at your age, I completed my family already. We're going overseas and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
So like,
Right.
like
I
you,
agree.
and then like it becomes like a guilt card. It's like you should have settled down earlier.
Yeah.
It's like you see you're 31 already. What were you doing when you were 24? What were you doing at 23? You know what? When your father was, I'm like, ah. So there was this parent, right? So it's like very frustrating, right? Because there was this parent who actually told me that she actually said like, oh, you the more you delay, the more your parents will be very upset. So don't make your parents upset. Get married early.
When I was young, there was someone who asked me, why you not attached yet? Why you so choosy? Then I said,
Oh my
look
goodness,
at the
yeah.
list of invisible names on, the
I'm glad you brought this up because I want to ask you a sensitive question. How many boyfriends did you have before you got married?
Wait, finish his story. Finish his story first, but I'll answer your question later.
Will you?
Of course, you just remind me in case
I mean, so like coming back to how like the whole church, right,
Yeah.
coming together in the understanding
Mm.
of what family is, and like how do you journey with people who are still single?
Yeah.
Do you like if they are very clear that they are looking for marriage,
Yeah.
right? Then how do you respond versus people who say, actually, I'm not interested in marriage,
Yeah.
or like I believe I'm called to live a celibate life,
Yeah.
or things like that. So perhaps the church could have a better understanding of that,
Yeah.
and even people who are
And not judge them.
and not judge them. Yeah.
Okay, but I
Sorry.
would encourage young people
Okay.
to
here
get
it is.
married
This is the
earlier if
official.
you can.
I agree.
If you can. If you cannot, look at your line of invisible suitors, then no choice lah, right? But if you can, because sometimes what I find is that young people have a lot of ideals. They wanna have be so far along in their career. They want to be stable, have their first house and everything
Finance,
before they
all
have
that.
children.
Yeah.
Biology doesn't wait for you.
It's true.
Yeah.
And then there's never a good time to have anything, right?
Mm.
Right? You have challenges once that thing changes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right?
And a lot of people think that children are a derailment to their career progression, to their plans.
Yeah.
But I want to challenge that. I want to say that children are actually a blessing from God.
Yeah.
And I feel that look at all the good that humans have been able to do. Look and think of all the good that we can do when we surrender our lives to God.
Mm.
And I believe that God will use the next generation to continue his work of redeeming the world. Yeah, I don't think of children as a burden on either on the parents or on society. I think they are the hope of the future.
Yeah.
I think it's a valid worry though to think about having to start a family.
Mm.
Yeah.
Why is it a valid worry? Is it a financial issue? Is it a responsibility?
All of it lah. Like first of all, like in this economy, like can you really like it's hard to it's very hard to raise a child. You have to like continue paying for fees, and then you have your own passions, right? What if I'm working working a job that's not so lucrative? Like can they like provide for you? Like can they even provide for myself? with
Is
my
that a
child?
case of management of your expectation management? Because some people have kids with a 4,000 household income. Some people have no kids with a 400,000 household income.
Mm.
Right? So it's what? What is your concern?
I guess also like come with the pressure. I mean like I'm only
Pressure.
I'm only like 21 girl. Like like thinking of really like starting a family is already like a societal pressure itself, even if it's unspoken.
Is it? Do you feel that societal pressure?
So I guess like I can already envision myself like to be asked like questions like regarding like marriage or like, oh, are you gonna have a child? The
Every
moment
Chinese New Year, right?
yeah, for real.
And then when you have the first child, they ask you when you're going to have the second child.
For real.
It doesn't
Yeah.
end.
Doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't end, right? Yeah. Even when mine are already 21 and 19.
When's the next one? They still ask you.
No.
When are they attached?
Yes. When are you going to be a grandfather?
Oh.
Good grief.
Yeah. So tell me, when do you plan, or do you have an idea when do you want to get married and have? What is the ideal for you to get married, have kids?
Honestly, I don't have an ideal when it comes to marriage and having kids.
Okay.
Because I'm not even in a relationship. So like I would just see like for me it's like okay, maybe it's also my personality, but like, I would see like where this goes, you know, like where a relationship will go.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Where it goes?
Like if we like end up like if we end up like, you know, getting engaged, then like I guess like this is a good phase to think about this kind of things. I feel like even though it's like never too early or never too late to think about
Right.
like things like this, but I guess it depends on the individual also.
Okay.
So a lot of it depends on the timing, right? Whether you meet the right person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you don't search, if you don't shoot, you don't score, right? So how would you go about doing, you know?
So
getting
there's like
married?
a few ways, right?
Yeah.
One is I go and look myself. First look for somebody myself, right? And that includes my social circles,
Yeah.
even online dating, which is something that we can also talk about.
Yeah,
and then there's
I think
also
we can. It's quite popular.
and then there's also I think I reached the point where my parents were like, I think we look for someone for you lah. And then there's that, and then there are like other uncles and aunties who are like, I don't know, aunties have like a whole list of girls or guys.
Do you have that pressure at home? Do your parents do that apply to you?
No, thank God.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you go through that?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, dating takes time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So even if they introduce somebody and I'm getting to know that person, 2 months, 3 months, and then you say, okay, let's pursue this. Or you say, okay, I think this isn't a good fit. So let's just, and then you restart, right?
Yeah.
And then that also takes some time because you gotta like, okay, like recenter yourself.
Yeah.
And then you learn how to begin again.
Okay.
Right? And then you go through all these social circles again, and then you start again. So dating takes time. It's not just you meet the person one time. I don't know, there are some people who are like that. I think second meetup, third meetup already proposed. I heard like stories like that.
But you realize as you grow older and after that, like people date for a shorter period of time and get married
It's
quick.
true, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you kind of,
Just don't have the
the
luxury.
instinct is there, the experience is there. Cannot. Okay, move on, right?
Move on, yeah.
But let's go back to the one question that needs to be answered, right?
Yeah.
So
I knew it.
yeah. So how many people?
He wrote it down, I think.
Yeah.
My husband is my sixth boyfriend.
Wow, player. So, where do you meet and how do you meet? I'm sure it's at the church, right?
My husband,
Seminary.
I met him in seminary. Hmm.
And how do you know that he was the right one?
So you know how you talk about when you're a bit older, you know what to look for, what are the red flags and what
Yeah.
are the green flags, right? So that was my experience lah. I started dating when I was in JC and I met my husband when I was in my 30s. And so I knew because by then I had my major red flag was whether he respects people. So like what you said, you can tell what the person is like, his character, from the way that he treats other people.
Mm.
I was looking for three things now. I was looking for spiritual compatibility. Doesn't mean that just Christian can already, because my friends set me up with Christians before, but didn't work out because I was super on fire for God, still am.
Mm. Yeah.
But the guy was just like,
Mm.
going to church, sometimes not going to church. So cannot already.
Mm.
Emotional compatibility. So wanted someone who is able to express his emotions. Not the kind that he upset angry, he sad angry, he angry also angry.
Right.
Cannot, that one I can't deal.
Okay.
And someone who was intellectually compatible. So we can talk about things and bounce ideas.
Right.
So when I met my husband, we actually began as friends. We were just friends in seminary for like more than a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then he started to text me more often.
Mm.
Yeah, then I was like,
Mm.
what's going on
Why is he
here?
asking me these kind of irrelevant questions?
Bouncing ideas.
Yeah, bouncing ideas. Okay. Bouncing ideas, I remember. Okay.
And then eventually, it blossomed into love. And we were dating for 10 months before we got engaged, 10 months before we got married.
Wow.
So it was quite fast.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow. You know, in our current culture where, dating often revolves around instant attraction, pleasure, and convenience, right? How can someone pursue purity without feeling outdated or ashamed?
Yeah. So I think first we need to understand that the culture around us isn't always right. I think that's the assumption
Yeah.
that everyone else is right and we as Christians, we're the odd ones, we are somehow outdated or, we're traditional. I think we need to not just accept what the world says as being valid and modern and progressive and trendy, because if you look at the roots of where all these ideas came from, you realize that they don't necessarily come from a place that is right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first, I want to say not all ideas are equal. I think sometimes when we hear our friends say something and then the Bible says something, then we're like, oh no, I can't choose because they're all, I should listen to both. Like I
Both
give
make
both.
sense.
Yeah, both make sense. I give
Yeah,
both
both
equal
make sense,
weightage.
right? Yeah.
But if you think about it, one actually comes from God, one comes from humans. Which one are you going to listen to?
Mm.
Right? That's for Christians lah.
Yeah.
But even if you're not a Christian, we have to ask ourselves the question, what is the truth? Nowadays, people will say, your truth is truth.
Relative.
Yeah, relative.
Everybody's truth is true.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, everybody's truth is true
Then there's
until
no
a
truth.
Christian says,
Yeah.
Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. And no, then your truth is not true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
True.
and they say that your
True.
truth, everybody's truth is true.
Mm.
That is an absolute true statement. And why should I accept that?
Yeah.
Your true statement over my true statement? Okay, so that's that.
Wow.
In practical terms, no one lives like that. Okay, if I was to say, okay, I want to get from point A to point B, Elisha tells me go this way, Luke tells me go that way. Am I going to stand there and say, both truths are true? How? How do I choose? No, I'm going to choose one. And all of us live life like that. We subconsciously or consciously choose the truth that we want to live by. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And so we have to ask ourselves, which is the truth that we want to live by? Okay. Then the next level is, which truth gives me the best life? Yeah. And I believe that God's truth is the one that leads to thriving, because God designed us, God wants us to thrive. And so He is giving us this set of things, rules, what we call OB markers, out of bounds markers, to keep us safe and so that we can thrive. And we have to look at the outcomes also, right? Because if we think, okay, I'm going to live my life based on the pursuit of pleasure, then we got to also think about what's the outcomes, right? Someone who goes and have sex with as many people as they want, does that really make that person happy? Coming back to the book that I mentioned earlier, the case against the sexual revolution,
Yeah.
she actually talks about how people who engage in promiscuous sex are actually more likely to be depressed. Yeah. So we really got to examine some of these things that people say and what is the real outcome from that lah. And I'll also add, pleasure is not at odds with obedience to God. In fact, obedience to God is meant to lead us to pleasure, to joy, to all these good things. The problem is when pleasure is taken out of its proper context. It's a bit like a fire. A fire in a fireplace, at a campfire, it keeps us warm, snug, happy. You set it wild in a house and it destroys everything. It's the same thing with pleasure. You actually have agency. You can choose what you want to have pleasure in. Do you want to have pleasure in the relationship that you've built up with your spouse over the last 10 years? Or do you want to trade that for pleasure with another person outside of your marriage? You choose where you want to get your pleasure from. Yeah. One leads to thriving and happiness for your spouse and your children. The other leads to destruction. Yeah. And the final thing I'll say is, I think we need to move away from these categories of just seeking pleasure or just seeking or think of it as just like purity. And I think if we look at every human heart, the real desire that all of us have is for intimacy, is to know and to be known and accepted. Sex gives us the illusion of intimacy without real intimacy. But I think when you have real intimacy that comes from knowing a person, then sex becomes a beautiful thing that enhances that intimacy. Yeah. So my final question would be to someone who is thinking, how do I live a Christian life, but at the same time feeling worried that I will be seen as outdated or I'm kind of shy about being so on fire for God. I will ask you, who do you identify with more? With Christ or with the world? Because if you identify with Christ, your purity will bring you great joy. Your holiness will bring you great satisfaction. But if you identify with the world, that's when the whole idea of holiness makes you feel ashamed and feel like you don't fit in. So it's like, where do you belong? Where do you want to belong? To Jesus or to the world?
I think that's a great way to just wrap this up because we're kind of running out of time anyway. I know there's a lot more to talk about and a lot more to discuss. Then let's see where this leads us. Thank you.
Thank you.
How's the cake?
It's okay.
I need one more.
Yeah, you need one more.